Alright, everybody, so I am at the old Lexington Commons. Now, the Commons was basically just a big, open, public park. Essentially what the Commons for any town was. Now, the interesting thing about the Commons at Lexington was that this was the public forum, and this is where the British regulars, the redcoats, would have to march straight through on their way to Concord to impound contraband. And so, the Minutemen, who were notified because of a bell being rung, all met at the Buckman Tavern and then set themselves up in protest, officially, in the grounds behind me. This is known as the Lexington Green. Now, the Lexington Green is important because this was, Parker was the guy who was in command of this area, of this specific branch of Minutemen. Now, they couldn't respond, they couldn't get to Concord in time to get organized, and they knew that. They were too close. The regulars were just down the road. This was like 5 a.m. It's pitch black. It's April 19th. They had just left the tavern. They came over here, and this is where they were preparing to do their protest. Now, according to both the British regulars and the Continental Minutemen here, both sides told themselves to not fire, to not shoot, to cause no harm, and both sides accused the other side of starting it, of being rowdy. But we do know that the British commander here called the protesters standing on these greens, "Move along, you rebels, you dogs. Disperse! Disperse, you rebels, you dogs, disperse." Well, Parker also told the men here to disperse. Yeah, they were armed, but they were armed with farming rifles, which the British regulars weren't even trying to apprehend. That was totally fine. That wasn't considered contraband. It was, more elaborate stuff like cannons, more than reasonable amount of shot, powder, a lot of powder, stored powder. That was deemed to be possibly dangerous and possibly, weapons of mass destruction. And so that's what the British were after. The regular army, not farming rifles, farming muskets, those types of things. But here on this ground is where the Minutemen were set up in protest. That's the official word they want to use for it. And it is here that the shot heard around the world actually was fired. Now, no one knows exactly where this shot was fired. The colonials were not actually in real proper formation. There were some over here, some over here. The regulars were actually lined up in formation, coming this direction from behind me, heading this way. So this is the direction the British were, the regular army was heading. And this is where the Continentals were stationed. You can see Buckman's Tavern right over there. Down this road is the Hancock Clark House. So there's a few other residents that were here from the time period. But this is the ground. This is where, for the Continentals, weren't ordered to shoot. Someone fired. They don't know who it, but the British definitely returned fire. So as far as how many shots the Continentals got off is unknown, but we do know that the British fired off, killing 8. And if what happened at Lexington early in the morning on the 19th of April 1775 didn't take place, there's a chance that a lot of the other surrounding areas would not have responded so heavily at Concord. I don't forget, there were over 3,000 Continentals at Concord, outnumbering the British by a considerable amount. And that's significant for the British's retreat, which saw them being hammered from the left and from right by, militia men hidden in the trees and forests. But this is the monument that was erected for the fallen here. And interesting, so the city of Lexington actually reinterred several of the men that were killed here inside of this fence. So this is an actual graveyard of the remains of several of those Continental soldiers, those Minutemen, that were here defending Lexington that day. So this is officially hallowed ground, as it is their final resting place. And the monument says, "Sacred to liberty and the rights of mankind, the freedom and independence of America, sealed and defended with the blood of her sons." This monument is erected by the inhabitants of Lexington under the patronage and the expense of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to the memory of their fellow citizens in St. Robert, Monroe, Massachusetts, and then Jonas Parker, Samuel Hadley, Jonathan Harrington Jr., then there's Isaac Muzzy Caleb Harrington, and John Brown of Lexington, and Ashel Porter of Warburn, who fell on this field, the first victims to the sword of British tyranny and oppression, on the morning of the ever memorial 19th of April, 1775. The die was cast. The blood of these martyrs in the cause of God and their country was the cement of the union of these states, the colonies, and gave the spring to the spirit, firmness, and resolution of their fellow citizens. They rose as one man to revenge their brethren, blood, and at the point of the sword, assert and defend their native rights. They nobly dared to be free. The contest was long, bloody, and affecting righteous heaven approved the soilman appeal. Victory crowned their arms, and the peace, liberty, and independence of the United States of America was their glorious reward, built in the year 1799. Now, the chances are Washington was still alive when this was built. He died December 14th of 1799, but this was completed after his term in office when he was a retired citizen. All the coins you see a lot of these times, those are usually veterans that are throwing to other veterans. I've noticed as a common trend, but get a better view here from the monument of the green along our road to history, our road down history, path to history, path to revolution tour. Like I said, I'm trying to do all these very, very quickly. I'm not doing them at full effect videos. Each one's a little short. This kind of give you a rough view of the site, what the area looks like, and so as you move along, you'll see, the Concord sites. You'll see other people, important figures along this route. But this is the tip of the iceberg as far as the actual revolution taking place. The things that you saw in Boston proper, those happened, sometimes years earlier, and it wasn't a thing of the colonies as a whole were, in this fight. It was mostly Massachusetts, but when the Intolerable Acts took place, and Massachusetts started taking the brunt of the British Parliament and the Crown's, rules and new regulations. They lost the ability for self-government. There's a lot of things going on here. That other colonies had people volunteering to come down to Massachusetts. So that's important. That's an important difference between what happened in the previous events and what happens in April of 1775. Is that now this becomes a colonial-wide. The Continental Congress has been meeting and discussing what to do. They've been talking about Congress. They've been discussing what's going. This is now far beyond the city limits of Boston, the borders of the colony of Massachusetts. This is now a much broader debate on what the colonies are going to be, what they are to become, and just what the sacrifices are going to be to do that. But it all kind of pivots from the events that happened before to what happens along these greens here. When you get to this, you get the Concord. The events that took place there is no turning back. Alright, so onward to Concord. I want you guys to see those areas. Those are a lot more involving stuff going on there. And I said once they retreat back, they get troops here, they get reinforcements. But the British regulars even get cannons for reinforcements at the end of the day. But they're outnumbered, and they really aren't. The Continentals aren't really forming up in lines. They're attacking from the sides. So the British are retreating. The regulars are retreating back to Boston, but they end up going up north into Charlestown, Charleston, to try to get away, which is part of all of Boston now, but it's the northern part that was separated by a channel. And but yeah, there are basically two major confrontations here. The one at 5 in the morning, which is the Lexington Green, they tried to herd around the world, and then when they got back here from Concord and saw, we got to get out of here. We are way outnumbered, way outmanned, and the colonists are not playing. So from here, the British regulars are heading back to Boston after the battles of Concord and trying to figure out what their next moves are. But so there's two basic confrontations here. One in the morning, they regroup here and then are trying to get back to Boston as fast as possible in the afternoon after the Battle of Concord. So now you guys kind of got to see what's going on here. I'm going to take you up to Concord, show you the Burnett House, the kind of the area where the North Bridge is at. What took place there, which was actually a significant battle, and then we're gonna get to the end of that. I'm gonna try to get you guys over to Bunker Hill so you can see that. So, all right, see everyone at the next stop.